We'll do a review in Likutei Sichos in Chelek of Daled, volume 24. This is the Sicha for Beracha, for B'zois Beracha. And the Sicha, the Rebbe discusses the difference between the level of peace that was brought about by Aaron in making peace between a husband and the wife, which was on a greater level than Moshe Rabbeinu. And that's why by Moshe Rabbeinu, the pasuk says, Bnei Yisrael, that the people, the males, were mourning after Moshe's death, but by Aaron, it says, Kol Beis Yisrael, the women as well. And the Rebbe asks, why would the Torah, when we're discussing the passing of Moshe Rabbeinu, tell us that Aaron was on a greater level than Moshe? It seems like the appropriate thing to do when Moshe Rabbeinu is passing is to speak about the greatness of Moshe, not how Aaron is greater. The Rebbe is going to explain the two levels that Moshe Rabbeinu was the level of emes. He couldn't change the requirement that Aaron used because of the level of emes. And the Rebbe explains that, but when he reached the higher level at the time, by Yal Moshe, then he reached even in a higher level to the level of the Avos Yisrael of Aaron, which is the lesson for us, the extent of bringing about peace, as we'll see inside, but we'll go step by step. Beracha, Aleph. Benegeya dem chiluk suvishu der bechia von Eden auf Moshe Rabbeinu und der bechia of Aaron HaKoyen la'achrei histalkuso. As it relates, there's a difference we find in the pasuk when the Jewish people cried after the passing of Aaron HaKoyen, and how they cried after the passing of Moshe Rabbeinu. If we look in the pasuk, so we see a difference. By Aaron steht vayivku goimer kol beis Yisrael. Over there, the pasuk states all the house of Israel. Beis, house, includes, as we will see, the women. By Moshe steht vayivku bnei Yisrael. By after Moshe's passing, it says only the sons of Israel, which means the males. Why is it that by Aaron it was Kol Beis Yisrael, all of the house of Israel, and by Moshe only the Bnei Yisrael, only the males? So there are two interpretations. One interpretation actually explains that because by Aaron, the first one says by Aaron, Moshe was still alive, and since Moshe cried for Aaron, also that included, and that brought about everybody's crying. When Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, there was nobody, Aaron was already gone, there was nobody as great as Moshe Rabbeinu to cry for Moshe, so therefore it didn't impact Kol Beis Yisrael. But at the time that Aaron passed, there was Moshe there, and Moshe Rabbeinu's crying for Aaron brought about that Kol Beis Yisrael. This interpretation expresses Moshe Rabbeinu's greatness. Aleph. B'shas Aaron is nistale geworden, at the time that Aaron passed away, is mipnei b'chiyas Moshe of Aaron, and because of Moshe's Rabbeinu's crying for Aaron, bachu kulam l'kvoide v'yirosei. So everybody cried in the honor of Moshe and the awe, respect, and the yira, the fear because of Moshe. They all cried. But as opposed to after Moshe's passing, there wasn't anybody as great as Moshe that was crying. So that's why only the men are the ones that cried. That's according to the first interpretation, that by Aaron passing, there was Moshe who cried, so that brought about Kol Beis Yisrael to cry along with Moshe, as opposed to when Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, there was nobody as great as Moshe to cry for Moshe. It only impacted for the Bnei Yisrael. But number two, Beis, we find that it's actually because of an advantage that Aaron had over Moshe, that Aaron used to make peace amongst families, a husband and a wife. And that's why there were more people, the Beis Yisrael, the males and the female, everybody mourned the passing of Aaron. And that was more than the mourning over the passing of Moshe, who did not have that advantage. Base. By Moshe, the second, why does it say a change between Bnei Yisrael by Moshe and by Aaron's passing? It says Kol Beis Yisrael. By Moshe, haben bloß die Zechorim geweint. By Moshe, only the males, they cried. Moshe came by Aaron, as opposed to by Aaron, Sheho Yorei Dev Sholem. He was the one that he would chase after peace, run after peace. He would make peace between a man and his friend. Between a woman and her husband. Nemar Kol Beis Yisrael. That's why it says all of the house of Israel, Zechorim Unikeves, the males and the females, not just Bnei Yisrael, but Kol Beis Yisrael, everybody. So what does it comes out? That according to the first interpretation, it is a advantage of Moshe that there was nobody left to cry for him. That's why the pasuk says only Bnei Yisrael by Moshe's passing. But according to the second interpretation, it comes out that it's a lessening of Moshe Rabbeinu's level, that he didn't merit for all Yidden to come mourn for him. According to the first interpretation, it turns out as the Hadgoshe from Vayivku Bnei Yisrael. What's the emphasis that the Bnei Yisrael cried, which is Blois Anoshim, which is only the men, Nit Kol Beis Yisrael V'Bay Arnen, and unlike all of the house of Yid of Beis Yisrael, as it was by Aaron, bringt Arois Ma'alosoi HaMiyuchedes Shel Moshe. That expresses, that brings out the special advantage, greatness of Moshe. As Lo'iniach Godel K'Moshe, that he didn't leave anybody as great as him. Vazayin B'chia, that other B'chia, the great, if anybody was as great, then his cryings will goydem zayin. Suvayivku Kol Beis Yisrael, that would cause all of the Beis Yisrael to cry. He didn't leave anybody at that level. That's according to the first interpretation. So we're talking about expressing the pasuk of Moshe Rabbeinu's greatness, as opposed to the second interpretation. Is Adarabah. It's on the contrary. The same emphasis. Why did the pasuk says Bnei Yisrael? Only the males, the men. Hanoshim v'lo hanoshim. It was the men and not the women. What is the emphasis here? That expresses, brings out as by Moshe is that inyan from Havoah Sholem, that by Moshe, this idea of bringing peace, nit given the tachlis hashlemus by Aaron, it wasn't as whole, as great, ultimately not as great as the peace that Aaron brought. So this is the second interpretation is surprising. Why would we say this before by Moshe, we describe Moshe Rabbeinu's passing something which is less advantage by him than by Aaron, is Tamua. So this is surprising. Says move on. So understood as Dorvu as Moshe, that in the place in which we discuss, we relate, we talk about Moshe Rabbeinu's passing, Moshe Rabbeinu's death, is Masim to the Tzelon Zayin Mailos. Over there, it's fitting to relate his greatness, his advantages. As we see in these verses, as we describe here in the end about Moshe Rabbeinu's passing, it says, Moshe Gomer Lekosa Eina Gomer. His eyes did not dim. V'lekom Navi Gomer. There wasn't a Navi as great as Moshe. L'chol Oisis, all the wonders Gomer. U'lechol Hayoda Chazoka Gomer, and the whole strong hand that Moshe Rabbeinu did. So we're talking about at Moshe Rabbeinu's passing. The pasuk describes his greatness and what he did. So why would Tavi Pasto the Hadgosha? So how does it fit in the emphasis as by Moshe is not given the Shleimus Hamayla? By Moshe there was not the ultimate, the wholesome advantage from Avodas Sholem of bringing peace by Aaron, like it was by Aaron. Why would the Torah over here emphasize, according to the second Pirush, that Bnei Yisrael, that he lacked the advantage of Aaron, which everybody, because he brought Sholem ben Ish L'Re'ehu, also a raid of Sholem Aaron, not Moshe. Why would we mention this at the time of his passing when we should be talking about Moshe Rabbeinu's advantages and greatnesses, and not to bring out something in which he was inferior to Aaron? Based, the Rebbe says, you see, in Rashi, when Rashi explains, explains it like the second Lashon, the second interpretation that the Rebbe brings down. Rashi goes before. Rashi doesn't just explain the pasuk, but Rashi seems to elaborate and articulate how Moshe was had less impact than Aaron does, and it strengthens the Rebbe's question. What is Rashi trying to not just explain the pasuk of why it says here Bnei Yisrael versus by Aaron, where it says Beis Yisrael, when why would we be talking this before the passing of Moshe Rabbeinu? Based, it's mir wird noch größer. This surprise becomes even greater. B'sim leiv zum seder aloshn in Pirush Rashi. When we pay attention to the order of the language, how Rashi uses. Rashi says, when it says Bnei Yisrael by Moshe, it says Haschorim, the males. Then Rashi goes off into a whole explanation of it. But by Aaron, because he was the one that ran after peace, and he would make peace between a man and his friend, and between a woman and her husband. Nemar kol beis Yisrael. Over there, it's called beis Yisrael Zucharim u'Nekeves, the males and the females. So the fact that Rashi starts off by telling you by Aaron, instead of saying Bnei Yisrael Zucharim and beis Yisrael Zucharim u'Nekeves, and then give you the explanation. But first he says Zucharim, and he tells you right away what was wrong. Why was it only Bnei Yisrael? If Rashi is blois oisen zu verantworten, if Rashi is intended only to answer, by Aaron state called beis Yisrael, and by Moshe Bnei Yisrael. Why by Aaron it stated all the house of Israel, and by Moshe it just says Bnei Yisrael? That's what Rashi is coming to answer. But Rashi should have started the subject matter with this. After saying Bnei Yisrael has Zechorim, should say U'ba'aron nemer kol Beis Yisrael Zechorim u'nekeves. To tell you the difference, by Aaron it says kol Beis Yisrael Zechorim u'nekeves. To answer the conflict between Bnei Yisrael by Moshe and Beis Yisrael by Aaron. Und then noch sagen dem Tam, and then Rashi should give the reason the fish of Shalom, because he would go after peace. But from the fact, from them, was Rashi hyped mit Ninyan von Havas Shalom Shel Aaron, from the fact that Rashi begins not by bringing the pasuk of Go Beis Yisrael, but he starts off with the idea of the peace that were brought by Aaron. Und dazu noch mit Ariches, and not just mentioning this, but he gives at length. Befrat, as Rashi schon gesagt früher bei Istalkus, so schon gesagt früher bei Istalkus Aaron. Rashi already stated this in Parshas Chukas by his passing that Aaron was a raid of Shalom, and that's why it was called Beis Yisrael. Is mashma, so it appears as Rashi's oisen, that Rashi's intentions over here is nicht nur zu mevar sein dem Her Tam behechrech. It's not only to explain to us the reason why as vayivku b'nei Yisrael from unser pasuk meint as zechorim. That when it says here b'nei Yisrael means the males. That's not the only reason why Rashi is trying. But Rashi is also intending to bring out the Maila from Aaron legabe Moshe, to bring the advantage of Aaron legabe Moshe. Avo by Aaron. So it's not just how we need to interpret the pasuk Beis Yisrael or Bnei Yisrael, but to bring out that there was an advantage to Aaron over Moshe in them inyan for Avos Shalom, in this matter of bringing peace. Istamua, so that's surprising. As though by inyan for Nistalkus Moshe, that right here, when we're discussing the passing of Moshe, so Mangora Rois bringen, so what are we bringing out to Meirig Zayin, and what are we at length in Hepech Malos Shel Moshe, and something which is opposite of Moshe's greatness, Lagabe Aaron, when you measure next to Aaron. Why would we here at his passing try to emphasize that and bring out at length how Aaron was greater in this matter of bringing peace? Man can't as Adrabe. Can't answer, maybe contrary. The Torah is a truthful Torah, and it wants to tell you that the truth is that Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't complete in this matter. But the Rebbe argues this is not the place that the Torah seemingly should be stating that. Can't different as Adrabe. Mitzad dem Yisrael v'goydel hamayla for Moshe Rabbeinu b'chlal. Because there is in generally an advantage and a greater advantage of Moshe Rabbeinu in general. So the Torah wants to say the truth is, so the Torah needs to caution us that as benegeya dem inyan ahavas Yisrael v'avos shalom, that as far as it relates to this matter of loving another fellow Yid and bringing peace, darf man sich nicht begnügen mit Anhoga, wie sie es gewähnt bei Moshe. So one should not be satisfied with the conduct the way it was by Moshe. Nor man darf sich lernen von Anhogas Aaron, but we need to learn from the conduct of Aaron. The Torah wants to tell us, Moshe Rabbeinu was so much greater than Aaron and many things, but there is something that we have to say, that Moshe Rabbeinu did not reach the level of Aaron. Aaron was greater. But this is not, if the Torah needs to and wants to tell us that, that's okay, but why at the time of Moshe's passing, would seem this is not the place for that. Is the full move on? So it's really understood as b'shas men leren dem inyan from Histalkus Moshe. When we are studying about and we learn about Moshe Rabbeinu's passing, is dabei negeya zu wissen dem Chilik zwischen Moshe and Aaron. Here at Moshe Rabbeinu's passing, it's important to know the difference between Moshe and Aaron. Koilil Milas Aaron legabe Moshe, also to include the Aaron's advantage over Moshe. Und der Fahr is der Posik do madgish vayivku b'nei Yisrael as Moshe. And that's why the Posik emphasizes here that the B'nai Yisrael cried for Moshe. Because that's important, as the Rebbe will explain. Or Rashi is mevayer megala. Rashi articulates, reveals to us, as their meat will der Posik oindaiten, that this, the Posik wants to emphasize by saying, B'nai Yisrael over here, the intent of the verse is to emphasize Oif Ma'aloseh shel Aaron legabe Moshe, Moshe Rabbeinu's advantage, Aaron's advantage over Moshe. As by him is given the Reidev Sholem, V'noisen Sholem, Benishal Re'eu, Benishal Lebailo. That by Aaron there was, by him there was the extra level. He would run after peace, and he would make peace between a man and his friend, and a woman and her husband. And that is important to us at the time of Moshe Rabbeinu's passing. And that Torah wants to tell us at the time of Moshe Rabbeinu's passing that there is actually advantage in the level of Sholem that Aaron had over Moshe Rabbeinu. So how is that? And that the Rebbe will explain in the Sikha. Rebbe will later on eventually explain that at the time of Moshe Rabbeinu's passing, we want to actually reach to this greater level, because the Rebbe will explain that Aaron, in order to, how come Moshe Rabbeinu did not reach up to the level of Aaron? Because in order for Aaron to do his piece, we're going to learn, he needed to change things around, which means he wouldn't, not to say something untrue, but when he would make peace is by changing and not saying the whole thing. So this is how Aaron made peace. But Moshe Rabbeinu, because he was truth, his midah, his measure was truth, he couldn't do that, and he couldn't, or lower himself to a level in which you have to change the truth in order to make peace. That wasn't Moshe Rabbeinu's avodah. That was Aaron's avodah. As the Rebbe will explain. Let's see. Ois Gimel. Vet men dos verstehen behagdim hatam. Will understand this by first bringing the reason. Was by Moshe gefindt man nicht b'mamor Chazal. By Moshe, we don't find in the saying of our sages of blessed memory about his conduct in Havos Sholem ben Ish L'Reu ben Ish L'Vailo, about bringing peace between a man and his friend and a woman and her husband, by Aaron, as we find by Aaron. The Torah doesn't tell us, we don't find anywhere that Moshe Rabbeinu did this similar like Aaron. On the contrary, it seems here that this was something which Aaron did and not Moshe. She's moving to Pashut. So it's self-understood and it's obvious. It's not that Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't as caring as Aaron, but it wasn't for the reason that Moshe, God forbid, he was lacking in loving of thy fellow, so he didn't go to the extent that Aaron. That's not the reason. But Adrabah, we know specifically Moshe Rabbeinu Oiv Yisrael Haya, quoted from the Gemara, that Moshe Rabbeinu was loved the Yid. It is given the Roya Neman von Allah. He was the faithful shepherd from all. Und each Jew was Hotzei Bazorg mit Zeiret Tzrochim. He provided them with all their needs. The Rebbe is going to say he provided them with all their needs, whether it's spiritual needs or the physical needs. So in the spiritual needs, we saw that he gave them a lot more than even Hashem told them as far as the Torah goes, and also in their physical needs, he gave them as we'll see. Side tzorcheim haruchnim, both the spiritual needs. Erot alein gileren Torah mikol ha'am. He himself taught Torah with all the people. Unit nor the halachas haTorah. Not only did he teach them the laws of the Torah, v'cheid muzen wissen leida es ha'maise asher yasun ve'ela asher lo yiseyoseno. Not just those that the Yidden must know in order to know what they need to do and that what they shouldn't do. So that wasn't only what Moshe Rabbeinu personally taught them. Also the pilpul, the various different insights and of the Torah, that was essentially given for Moshe and his seed. So technically, that part, Moshe Rabbeinu was not responsible to give over to the Yidden, but we say, is Nogbot Tevasayim ben Israel. He did well with it, and he actually gave that also with a good eye. He passed it along to the Yidden. So here we see that spiritually he gave them even more. He loved every year that he gave them even more than he was supposed to. That's in the physical aspect. Unsai called tzrachei magashmi, and also all their physical needs. To start with, we should mention the mon, the manna that came in the merit of Moshe, so that provided for them. Till also the other needs that they had, which originally was originally they were in the merit of Aaron and Miriam, is noch zeyer petira, after they are passing. When nistalek habe'er unistalka nanakovet, at that point, after Aaron passed away and after Miriam passed away, after Miriam's passing, the be'er was nistalik, the well left them, and when Aaron passed, the anane, the glories, cloud of glory left them. And it says, they returned because of the merit of Moshe, as the Gemara says. So Moshe Rabbeinu essentially gave them all their needs, not just the manna, but even later on the clouds and the water. So can't say, it's obvious that Moshe Rabbeinu did not love less the Yidden than Aaron. The Shadarfun is, but the meaning of this is as mitzad in Yonei b'shluchusah shel Moshe, because of the matter, the aspect, and the mission, Moshe Rabbeinu's aspect and mission in this world. So Moshe he had a different style, a different way of conduct in Avos Yisrael v'Avos Shalom, in loving thy fellow Yid and bringing peace, and then it was the conduct of Aaron. So he had a different style. That's Borabazeh. So what's the explanation? Dalet. Because wegen dem Eufon von Havos Shalom von Aaron, about the way that was brought peace by Aaron, that Tzeilen Chazal, our sages of blessed memory, relate. Askidei lasis Shalom ben ish l're'eu chulu. In order for Aaron, in order to make peace between a man and his friend, hat mishane given from them emes. He changed, like they call it a white lie, but it wasn't a lie. It was just changing from them emes. As the Rebbe will explain, God forbid, it was not a lie, but he changed. But this is self-understood, something which is permissible and desirable by Torah. It's not like to say changing it is wrong. This is actually permitted and wanted by the Torah. Kimaimer Chazal, as our sages of blessed memory tell us, that muter loyla odom lishanis bidvar hasholem, that it is permissible for a person to change in a matter when it comes to peace. So that was necessary for Aaron in order to bring about the peace. He had to make and change. He was Meshana. Moshe Rabbeinu Ober, but when we talk with regards to Moshe Rabbeinu, however, Ibald as Midose is Midasa Emes, since Moshe Rabbeinu's measure is the measure of truth, the Riber hot by him nit gekent sein der Eufun von Havas Shalom. By him, there could not be that style of bringing peace by changing around things. Well, if the Torah says that it's allowed, but that's one thing, yes, it is allowed, but for him to do it himself, he couldn't do it. Wasn't his mission in this world. Unafa pias der inyan for mutar chulu, the shanit bidvar hasholim is, even though that this idea, the concept that it's permissible to change when it comes to a matter of peace is kinal. Ahirof and Torah, as said before, this is the Torah instructs that you can change. Vazi is Torah's emes, that is the true Torah. Und wie wird herumgeredet b'mokom achar, and as it has been discussed elsewhere, b'diuk loshen chazal, to the precise language our sages don't say is permissible to lie for shalom. It says muter lishanes. That's is blows an Indian from shinu. It's only a change. It's only an aspect of change. That is not a lie, God forbid. We're not talking about lying. That would be hepech teres emes. That's contrary to the true Torah. So change is not in a case where it's shalom, it's allowed. So even though it's allowed, but Moshe is ober azayfen an hoge fort verbunden mit ahelam. However, still that type of style of conduct is still associated with blocking out, changing things. Of midas emes, on the measure of truth, you're blocking. You're not full disclosures, not full truth. And the far is thus not massing to them shlichus. That's why that is not fitting to the mission from them was midosu madrigosu, for a person whose his measure and his level, his step amyuchedes is midas emes. He was to truth. That was Moshe Rabbeinu's measure. For Moshe Rabbeinu, whose whole shlichus, his whole level and his measure was truth, it's not fitting even this block on the truth, this change. Then that type of style is connected to Aaron, was midos is midas chesed. His measure is the measure of kindness. So because of kindness, it changes a little bit. But not for Moshe Rabbeinu. That means like this: Moshe Rabbeinu teaches all of Torah, even this halacha as well, because this is the Torah. But to do it himself, it's different. When Moshe led on Torah mit Eden, when Moshe teaches Torah to the Eden, Gitter ze iber alle inyoni from Torah, he passes along to them all aspects of Torah. Also, this lesson from Mutter l'shames b'davar hasholim, that you're allowed to change when it comes to a matter of peace. But when he teaches you about it, but how should he conduct himself? Which is associated, tied to his level, and therefore that would be his mission in this world. Is by him nit shayich oder. So by him it does not apply. That way does not apply to Moshe. And Rebbe adds another point. Perhaps we can add another aspect. Moshe cannot descend to such people who are on such a low level, to the extent they're so low because they're and the only way to make peace is durch Mishana Zayim in Emes, to change it from the truth. That Moshe was beyond Moshe Rabbeinu's level, to come down to such a low level that the only way you can come on and make peace is because of the changing the truth, or being Mishana. So therefore, That wasn't Moshe Rabbeinu. So now we're saying there's two styles of avodah. There's one avodah from only being truthful 100%, not changing at all. And the other is to go down and be changing a little bit for the sake of peace, to be Mishana. And during Moshe Rabbeinu, Rebbe explains in Hey, when he was busy with his own avodah, so that was his level. But as it came to the time of his passing, the Rebbe brings the example when he was free, sort of not being involved in his avodah, was about to pass away. He appreciated and recognized the maila at that time of the level of Aaron. Let's look inside. Hey, since these both levels of conduct are according to the Torah, is move on as yesh, it's understood that each one has something that the other one doesn't have. The maila for Anhogas Moshe is what is the advantage of Moshe's conduct? Was in them is nitokim shum nitiya for midas emes. And there is no tilting from the truth, from the measure of truth. But on the other hand, is da mailin and hogas aren. There is an advantage in Aaron's conduct. Was dafke dur because specifically through Aaron's conduct, der great meant zum tachten b'yoser, you can reach the very low person. That you have to change. How do you reach them? There's no choice. Also, if you have to reach them, that you have to bend the truth a little bit in order to reach to that person. That's the advantage of the avodah of Aaron. The mitvet musbar dem tam. So with this, it's also explained the reason was dafke by Petiras Moshe's mudgash maloseh shel Aaron, that it is specifically when Moshe is passing, there's the emphasis of this advantage of Aaron. It is the time when he's passing, that's when we bring out the advantage of Aaron's Aveda. B'meshach yimei chayav shel Moshe, during the lifetime of Moshe, then it is given Farnumen, when he was busy, preoccupied mit durchführen sein Shlichus B'Almadein, to accomplish his mission in this world, is that given Kol Kulei Osuk, he was entirely preoccupied in sein Oifen HaAvodah, and his style of service. Und sein Shlichus Ba'olam is Zuton, and his mission in the world is to do alles Ba'ofen Midas Emes. Everything he did was in a way with a measure of truth. That was during his lifetime. Pshas Oberes is gekommen der Zman. But when the time came, from Vayal Moshe Goimer El Har Nevoy, Moshe goes up to Mount Nevoy. He has already completed his mission here below in this world. And he was about to be elevated above. Demot is by him given there's man, that then there was the time by him so that Herren the Meile in Anhogas Aren, in order to sense the advantage in Aaron's conduct, was bringt Sholem to Yedlin, that brings peace to every Jew. And the Rebbe says we have a similar idea that when it comes before the time of passing, a person can at that point start thinking beyond his own personal life, as we know the story of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, as the Rebbe brings down. Al derech dem biur in the Maimer HaYedua. This is similar to the explanation. There is the known statement from Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai Somuch L'Misoseh. Rabbi Chaim ben Zakkai, when it was close to his passing, before his death, he was crying. When they asked him why he was crying, he said, I'm not sure, I don't know in which path they're going to lead me, to the path of of Gan Eden to Olam Haba to Gehenna to other. We don't know he was crying. He said, "Do the kasha." So the question is, "Vi kumtes? How is it possible?" As Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, that the Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was his given from the Gedolah Tanoim. He was the great amongst the Tanoim. Chazal seinen bekamen mekoimes maflik in der Gadlus von Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, as our sages of blessed memory. In many places, they speak very highly about the greatness of Rabbi Chaim Wolosow. Und is doch gewiss gewesen, diese Betachlis, and for sure he must have been totally careful in Sur Merava Seitoiv, staying away from evil, from doing anything wrong, and only doing good. So by him Zain Sophic, so he should be a question and doubt, gating Gan Eden or in Gehenna, whether he's going to heaven or he's going to purgatory, he's going to Gehenna. Why would he have a doubt? State the Riv the Hasbara. So the Hasbara that is explained on this. Chotcher is given Zicher. Although he was certain that as it affects his revealed powers, the behavior externally, his service was in total wholesomeness. That's not a question. Being the great of the Tanoim. Is an ober given the super, but he wasn't sure, he was in doubt. See, hat euch getan, was darf öfton, had he accomplished that what he needs to accomplish, benegaya zayin, etzem hanefesh alamayla megiu, as it relates to the essence of his soul, which is not beyond the revelation, which did not come through in a revealed way. He wasn't sure, while his behavior externally was perfect, but what's going on internally, his essence, which does not come into the open. And that's why he wasn't sure. But why did this uncertainty only come at the time that he was passing? As bleibt aber nicht movon, by him is given a suffix. If he was in doubt, wegen der Matze von Etzem Nafshe, about this standing of the essence of his soul, sie as gefindt sich in a Matze von Gedusha oder Chaz v'Sholem lehepech, whether his soul is in a condition, a situation that it's in holiness, or God forbid, it's not in holiness. If he had that question, that doubt, what's going on with the essence of his soul? So why was he in pain about this? Only when it came close to his passing, to his death. And not earlier during his entire life. Why is it only that we find that he started to cry at the end of his life? Why, if he wasn't sure, why didn't it bother him before? Is einer von die Biurim bazeh. So one of the explanations of them, as the Rebbe discusses in Likutei Sichos, in Biurim, as the note here. So the Rebbe explains that b'meshech kol yimei chayev, during the time of his lifetime, is Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai given in ganzem vernommen, da reingetan in sein Shlichus Ba'al Modein. Rabbi Chaim Wolosow was totally occupied, and he was totally immersed in his mission in this world, which is limud HaTorah la'atzmo mit andere v'chulu v'chulu, to study Torah for himself, to teach Torah to others, etc., etc. When he didn't have the time to aufstellen sich und trachten, to stop and to think wegen seiner Madreges, about his own levels. Wo halt mit etzem nafshi? Where is he standing with the essence of his soul? He didn't have the time. He was preoccupied in doing his avodah. But it's specifically when he came close to his passing. Then hat gehalten bei verendigen sein Shlichus Ba'al Modein, when he was about to end his mission in this world, hat gekent sich misbeinen sein. So he was able to reflect was es tut sich mit etzem nafshi, what's going on with the essence of his soul. Now, He's done with his shlichus. Now he is reflecting what's going on with me, with my essence of my soul. And that's why he was crying then. That was explained by Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. And similar is in our matter with Moshe Rabbeinu. Specifically when it came close to his passing. Then Moshe has already concluded his mission in this world. Is done by ihm gewend der Zman. Then it became the time to hereintrachten sich, to reflect in the Chiluke Madreges, in the different levels, zwischen sein Avodah und Avodas Aaron, between his service of Moshe and Emes, and the service of Aaron. Und demel der Herr Meilas Aaron, and then he sensed and he felt, he was able to appreciate the advantage of Aaron. Und der Riber is euch azoi verschrieben in Teuras Moshe. That's why it's also recorded so in Teuras Moshe. Davke in the Psukim when Mrs. Moshe, that when we record about the story about Moshe's passing, wird gebracht, die Amaila von Avodas Aaron legab Avodas Moshe is expressed the advantage of the service of Aaron relative to the Avodas Moshe, which came to light at that point in Moshe Rabbeinu's attention to that, which came before his passing, about that greatness. But the Rebbe in Ois Vov, it says this is not yet fully understood, that if the level of truth doesn't allow for the avodah of Aaron, so how is it that close to his passing, so why would that all of a sudden change? Truth should be all the time, even when he's passing. And the Rebbe is going to explain because actually Moshe Rabbeinu entered into a higher level at that time, and he got the nun shari bina more than the mentes that he had, as we'll see inside. Vov. Der Biur is over nit in ganzen maspik. This explanation is not entirely satisfying. It's not sufficient. Bald as midos shel Moshe is midas ha'emes, since Moshe Rabbeinu's measure is the measure of truth, is doch in them kenaf kemina lechaira. So it would seem, what difference does it make? It shouldn't make a difference. See, das is be'ez gefinzich lamata, whether it's when he is below, and he's occupied in his mission, his work that he needs to accomplish in this world, or that in their side, or whether it's on the time when when his soul is about to go up above. In any place and place is in Yoneshel Moshe Midos HaEmes. Moshe's matter, Moshe's truth, the measure of truth. So how come we say as be'ez histalkusei, that when he is passing, then by im nirgash der emes, then he senses the truth from the Maila from Avodas Aaron. Now he sees the truth of the greatness of the service of Aaron. Why? If his measure is truth, so there should be all the time, not to change like Aaron had to do. Why at the time of his passing does that change? Why does he able to see the truth of the Avodah of Aaron? The Bir Bazal Beracha Chasidus. We can explain this explanation in this matter in the path of Chasidus. That Inyan von Histalkus Moshe, this concept that Moshe is passing, meant not Histalkus b'muvon gashmi. Doesn't mean just that he passed in a physical understanding. As Nishmos is Histalek geworden von sein Guf, that his soul was passed from his body. But it's most also and mainly a removal and an elevation, a spiritual elevation. That his soul was elevated to a much higher step. And then this, relative to this step that he reached during his lifetime in this world, he was able to reach even a higher level. Der Taich Ubir in Posig, as it's known, the translation, explanation of the verse, Vayal Moshe Goimel El Har Nevoy. It says Moshe went up to Har Nevoy. The word Nevoy, Mount Nevoy, is made up of two Nun Boy, which means Nun Boy. That during the duration of his life in this world, Moshe Rabbeinu reached the 49 gates of understanding. But on the day that he passed, he merited and he went up to the 50th gate. Nun boy, that 50th gate boy will came in him. We can say, Ados is der bir pnimi in dem inyan. This is also the inner explanation in dem inyan von Vayal Moshe. Moshe went up. Vayal Moshe went up. Generally speaking, Moshe Rabbeinu's Torah was hamshocha, to bring down. But on the day of his passing, Vayal Moshe, he started the avodah, was an aliyah. The difference between Moshe and Aaron, Moshe is hamshocha and Aaron is haloah. But here, Vayal Moshe began the avodah of Vayal. Moshe is in Yonei hamshocha milmayla lamata. Moshe's matter, Moshe's aspect is that he draws down from above to below. It's known as Shushvina de Malko, the support of the king. There's Shushvina de Malko and the Shushvina de Matrunisa, the support for the king and the support for the queen. Aaron is the support of the queen. Moshe is the support of the king, which means Moshe is the Hamshocha to the king. Hashem's Hamshocha into the world. Was der Far hot Rob gebracht Torah. That's why he brought the Torah. He brought down the Torah Lamato, below. Moshe kibel Torah misinai. Moshe received the Torah from Sinai, then he gave it over. Mashenkin Aaron, as opposed to Aaron, is Shushvino de Matronisa. He is the support for the queen. And is Madliku Maila de Nedas Hamenoida. He lights. Lights means he elevates. Behaloischa, he elevates the Nedas Hamenoida, the lights of the menorah. Behaloischa es hanedas, you elevate and bring up the lamps. So that the flame goes up on its own. Spiritually, what does this mean? The avodah of Aaron, as Yisrael, he raises the souls of the Yidden, which is Neir Havaya Nishmas Adam, raising the lamps, meaning raising a soul, because a soul of man is really Hashem's lamp. Every soul is a lamp of Hashem. Raising the lamps means he's raising the souls. As a Zoln Stein in Aliyah, L'Shorsham and Mekoidam, so that they stand in a way of an elevation to their source and their root. But on the day of his passing, Moshe was elevated higher than his madrege, which was Hamshocha Shushvina de Malko. Durch dem was bei ihm hat sich aufgetan euch de Meile von Aaron, through the fact that he also came to him this advantage of Aaron. Vayal Goimer, he started Halo Milmato Lemailo, elevation from below to above. Und das ist verbunden, that these two things, this elevation with Nevoy, Nun Boy, are connected. Das ist verbunden mit dem, was hat dann solche gewähnt zum Shar Hanun, the fact that at that time he merited that 50th gate. B'meshach Yemei Chayo, during his lifetime, when avodas Moshe is given mugdar loit midasei umadrigose shel Moshe. When Moshe Rabbeinu during his lifetime, it was defined. It was it had the levels and the limitation according to his measure and his step of Moshe Rabbeinu. So he shined all all 49 gates of Bina. Yeah, but only the 49 gates of Bina. Was Mispar Memtes, the number 49, Weist of der Hagbola von Welt. That points to the limitation, the finite of the finity of world. Zayin Pom Zayin. 7 times 7 is 49. 7 is Shiva Simei Habinyan. That's the 7 days of the structure, the world creating. 7 times 7, it's all within limitations. But when it was accomplished by Moshe, by him, was accomplished the idea. From Vayal, he made the Aliyah, Aliyah v'yitziyah from seine Gedorim, he was elevated and he was able to exit his limitations. As sein avoida is nit bagrenitz, that his service is no longer limited. Afilu nit mitivoi b'kedusha, even not his nature as it is in kedusha. It's within limitation, boundaries. It's no longer bound by it. Midas emes, that would be tied to that limitation. It has to be only truth. Blois in kafun hamshocha milmayla lamato, that would be just in the line of from above to below. But now he went out from that limitation. Now he also has the elevation from below to above. Ayal is der mit verbunden, was zu ihm is nicht geworden der Shahanun. That's associated. He has now the 50th, which is beyond the binyan, Shiva Shimei binyan, without the limitation of the world, beyond the world. Shalom Mailam Hagbol, which is higher than limitation. So this we can also understand as it relates to this idea of loving another Yid and bringing Shalom. Since on the day of his passing, by Moshe became this service of going up, Padregas Aaron. He went because Aaron was usually Haloah, but now all of a sudden, Vayal Moshe Rabbeinu is also elevation. So that's why then he sensed and he felt that advantage from Avos Shalom Shal Aaron of this bringing peace of Aaron, so the Gerecht Ali Yidden Canal, which reached all Yidden, as we said before. Zayin. As from them Alam Zet Men noch an Inyan begoidla Havas Yisrael from Moshe Rabbeinu. So we can say that from all this we see another aspect in how great was the love of a Yid by Moshe Rabbeinu. In the Pesukim was reden wegen sein Stalkus, those verses that talk about his passing, how is Omer mipi atzmai u'beruch hakodesh. So he was saying either by himself or Ruach HaKodesh. He was saying it by himself, Ruach HaKodesh, because Moshe Rabbeinu is talking about his own histalkus. He's saying that by Beruch HaKodesh that he wrote his words. So what does Moshe Rabbeinu say? Umadgish malosi shel Aaron, and he emphasizes the advantage of Aaron. Moshe Rabbeinu himself writing this and saying this is talking about the greatness of Aaron. Kidei as Eden zon derfun oplernen, in order that Yidden should learn from this, vibrate und tief, how wide and how deep as Muzayin der Inyan von Ahavas Yisrael must be the love of a Yid. As nit kukendik of Goydle Ilu von sein Ahavas Yisrael, notwithstanding the great advantage of Moshe Rabbeinu's love of a fellow Yid. Certainly he went up, Mailim Bakoidish, he went up in holiness during his lifetime, Dargins and Abbas Yisrael, from step to step in his love of a Yid. Just as he went up in holiness in all holy matters. So for sure, Abbas Yisrael, he kept on going higher and higher, Moshe Rabbeinu himself. Afal Pekein is thus not maspik, and yet that is not sufficient. And you must conduct yourself as Aaron. Roidev Sholem, the Noisin Sholem, Ben Ishla Re'eu, Ben Ishla Baila, to seek and run after, to make peace, and to give peace between a man and his fellow, and between a woman and her husband. Moshe Rabbeinu says this is actually that he records, and this is the greatest level, more than all that he reached his lifetime, is to go to the level of Moshe, to Aaron. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu himself says, and that's the love of Moshe Rabbeinu that he teaches us. This is Mesichas Leil Shabbos Chol HaMoed Sukkos B'Yom Simchas Torah Tavshin Membeis.